Time was when my orchestra and I played to you daily, featuring the great music of a golden era. For the next 40 minutes, we invite you to sit back and join us as we take a nostalgic dip into the past and listen once again to some of the greatest songs which we knew and loved when time was much younger, all of us.
Those singing, the vocalists in this programme, are Jane Marden and Scott Peters.
And I,
the kind you cherish more and more as the years.
The tunes were taken from an LP made during a show on HTV, and it was a programme put out during the lunch period time last year in 1973, and Geraldo made a great impact on many listeners and watchers watching this particular programme. So here we are bringing you up the music with Geraldo talking to Dennis Ricard in the studios of Global Radio here in Croydon.
One lovely yesterday.
The United Kingdom in the past, we've produced many great orchestras, and perhaps none more famous than that of Geraldo. With me, in fact, is Geraldo. Geraldo, your real name?
My real name is Gerald Bright.
Jerry, it's a lovely name, and yet you said you were famous, in fact, before you became Geraldo to the nation. You were famous in the north.
I've spent a good many years up in the north of England, in Blackpool, St Anne's, and there I was broadcasting for a long time for the BBC on Sound Radio under the name of Gerald Bright. And this is very interesting because in those days, it shows you how radio and everything connected with communication has changed. We used to broadcast on a Monday, Tuesday and Friday from the Majestic Hotel St Anne's. And we used to start broadcasting at 6 o'clock in the evening, go on to 6:15, and then the news came on from 6:15 to 6:30, and then we came back on the air at 6:30 until 7, 3 times a week, and we did this for 2.5 years. So you can imagine that this was quite an effective public relations, and that the public liked it. They enjoyed it very much. We used to get an enormous listening public.
Taking you right away back to your very early days, in fact, you weren't born in the north of England, you were born in North London.
Right.
Aha, and where was that?
In Islington. Duncan Terrace, to be exact. This is the part of London now which is so artistic and fashionable.
Yet it wasn't in those days.
Not at all, no.
Would you think you had a tough upbringing?
No, not really. I mean, my parents weren't affluent in the way of money. We had a very happy home. No, I couldn't say that it was tough.
Was it a musical family?
No. My brother is musical, of course, but the rest of the family, no. My sister plays a little, and one of my sisters, another one plays, and my late sister used to play the violin. But my parents were not musical, except that they enjoyed music.
How, in fact, did you get into the musical scene, if we can use that terminology today? Because for somebody who was not musical, yet you became a child prodigy and you began to win every diploma at the Royal Academy of Music. How did it happen?
I was always fond of music, but I never intended taking up music as a profession. I wanted to use it as a hobby. But then, at the end of the First World War, I didn't have very much alternative because I couldn't get a decent job in commerce, which I wanted to go in for. So, to earn a living, I had to go into music, and my first engagement was playing as a relief pianist in the Old Kent Road in a cinema in the days of the silent films, see? Which was great experience. And then from there I went to Lyons and played the piano in a cafe orchestra and got landed with music. But I can't complain because I think I'm a very fortunate person. First of all, because I enjoy all my musical activities, and secondly, because I've been able to combine music with commerce, so that done both.
Well, let's just hold it there and we'll come back and talk to you about your first musical engagement. Right now, Eric, you've got some music.
Yes, indeed we have, and it's so nice to have a man about the house.
It's so nice to have a man around the house. Oh, so nice to have a man around the house. Someone sweet who's glad he found you, who will put his arms around you, and his kisses just astound you. It's so nice. Oh, a house is just a house without a man. He's the necessary evil in your plan. There are many things about him you just cannot do without him, though it's just a constant game of cat and mouse. It's so nice to have a man around the house. Just a guy in pipe and slippers who will share your breakfast kippers and will help to zip your zippers. It's so nice. And a house is just a house without a man. He's the necessary evil in your plan. Someone kind who knows you'll treasure any simple little pleasure, like a full-length mink to cover last year's blouse. It's so nice to have a man around the house.
Talking still to Geraldo, we're taking you right the way back before the formation of the Geraldo Orchestra to the Gerald Bright Orchestra. Now, how did you go to make the move from London to the north of England?
I ran away from home,
The classic
which
story.
draws you, doesn't it, to play in the ship's orchestra.
Oh, that's a twist.
You see, and this is absolutely true. I was dying to go and see the world, and my parents, unfortunately, were not wealthy enough to be able to pay for me to go, so I played in the ship's orchestra and ran away and went on a Mediterranean cruise for 3 months. And then when I came back, I went to Liverpool, and I played in a cinema with an orchestra for a few months, well, 2 cinemas, the Scala and the Futurist, and then went to Blackpool to play in an orchestra which a man called Arthur Davis was running in the Blackpool Tower. And there they used to feature me as solo pianist in that massive ballroom. I don't know whether you know the Blackpool Tower ballroom. It's fabulous. Holds 5,000 or 6,000
The
people.
tower, yes, the ballroom, no.
See? Well, the ballroom's underneath the tower, you see, right under. Fabulous ballroom. And I used to play solo piano with a drummer, Kitten on the Keys, Greenwich Witch, all these piano standards which, you know, the people loved. And from there, I was there for about, I suppose, 12 months. And this was an enormous success locally, though I say this myself. The public adored it because it was a novelty. And from there, I went to the Metropole Hotel and formed my first orchestra. When I say first orchestra, it was a 5-piece. And it was called Gerald Bright and His Celebrity 5.
It's a lovely name, isn't it? Looking back at those days, do you look back at them with nostalgia, or can you wince when you hear your recordings?
No, I don't wince, and I'm going to say something very sincerely now. There is no time that I haven't looked forward to what I was doing and enjoyed. And I don't think anyone can make a success of their life, whatever it is, music or industry or commerce, whatever it is, unless they enjoy what they're doing. And I can honestly say that I've enjoyed every minute of it.
Was there an appreciation of your sort of music? Because after all, you were the pop musicians of your age, if I can use such a word. Were you regarded with some form of horror by the establishment?
Not at all.
Not at all.
I don't think the type of music that I've ever played has been horrific. Anyhow, you see, I think it must be. I mean, the majority must be the people that enjoy melodious music.
This was, of course, in the 1920s, early 1920s.
Yes, well, we were still playing melodious music then. This was the day in Blackpool, particularly, when Lawrence Wright, Bert Feldman, and Francis Day and Hunter were running these song kiosks all across the promenade. This is the days when they used to sell hundreds of thousands of copies of sheet music. This is all changed now. You don't sell sheet music anymore. All you do is sell records.
Was it about this time you started to make your first records?
No. Long before we ever made any records. The first records we ever made were with the Gaucho Tango Orchestra. That was quite a few years after Blackpool and St Anne's.
Fond memories, perhaps, of people you worked with?
Fond memories of people that I worked with, what, in those days? We were all friends. I tell you who was the drummer in the orchestra at the Metropole. I don't know whether you ever heard of him, but there must be a lot of people that have. Ivor Kirchin. He used to run a band for Meccas, I think, for a long time.
Getting bookings at that time, you were really tied down, I suppose, to the dance halls.
Well, no, you see, we weren't even looking for bookings. We were permanently engaged at the Metropole, which was a whole-time job, which was enjoyable. And then from the Metropole, we went to the Hotel Majestic at St Anne's, which again was a hotel job.
What made the change from the Gerald Bright Orchestra to the Geraldo Orchestra?
Well, the engagement at St Anne's eventually finished after 5 years, and I had to come and try my luck down in the Smoke, which was really my home. It wasn't as though I was born in the north of England. Much as I enjoyed being there and made so many friends. I always say that's my second home, the north of England. But I came down to London, had to look for a job. And I'm walking along Shaftesbury Avenue one day, and I bump into a chap. He says, "What are you doing down here?" He says, "I thought you were permanently engaged in the north of England." I said, "Well, I was until 2 or 3 weeks ago, but I've given that up now, and I'm looking for a job down here." And he said, "Do you know anything about tango music?" So I said, "Well, I've never said I don't know anything about a thing unless I've tried. What do you want?" He says, "Well," he says, "I can't put you in as leader because," he says, "I've got my leader, but," he says, "I'm rehearsing a tango orchestra and we badly need a pianist. Would you like to take a chance?" Well, this was more or less this time of the year, really, or earlier, just after Whitsun. He says, "We're rehearsing at so-and-so, would you come in and rehearse in the morning?" So I went in to rehearse in the morning, and the only one that seemed to be giving any ideas about tangos was myself. And he was there, this agent. And when we finished, he said, "Jerry, I think you better take over this band because no one else seems to know anything about it. Now," and he said, "We'll get a new violinist." Well, we got a new violinist the following day, and I took over the band and went out and bought a whole lot of tango records, the real tangos, the South American ones, and we started from there. And then a couple of weeks later, after we'd been rehearsing for some time, this agent brought along a man to hear us, and he came into a rehearsal room in Shaftesbury Avenue, heard the band, and he said, "I'll get an audition next week for this band, providing Jerry's leading the band." Now, this is amusing because I couldn't lead the band except stand in front of a 7-piece band. The piano was out of tune with the piano accordions, so I couldn't play the piano because it would have been terrible. I was just standing there waving my arms around with a 6-piece orchestra, which wasn't very inspiring, but he wanted me. So the following week we went along and we played 3 or 4 tangos for the managing director of the Savoy, and he engaged us for 2 months.
Why did you choose the name Geraldo?
Well, Gerald is my name,
Mm-hmm.
and I had Spaniards and Italians in the band. Instead of calling me Jerry or Gerald, which they would normally call me, they called me what my name was in their particular language, and that's how Geraldo was born.
The birth of a gimmick. Would you use the word gimmick in describing the choice of the name?
Not at all, no. It's my name, you see. It just, no, it wasn't a gimmick. We were all in costume, you see. You couldn't have called it Gerald Bright, whatever you tried to do, because the illusion would have been lost.
Well, let's leave it there. Let's go on with another piece of music and we'll return and talk about the beginnings of the Geraldo band. But Eric, I think you've got another tune.
Yes, I have indeed. And we've chosen for you a piece called Provence. It's by Gould, and here is the Geraldo Orchestra playing it for you.
Still talking again to Geraldo. If you've just joined us, a very big hello to you. Geraldo, before the record, we were talking about the formation of the Geraldo Orchestra as such. Can we put a date to this, I wonder?
The Geraldo Orchestra, 1930,
1930.
at the Savoy.
From the Savoy, did you move on from there? Obviously.
No, we were
didn't.
at the Savoy for 10 years.
For 10 years?
And we moved on to the extent that we used to do broadcasting outside of all kinds of programs, big orchestra, dance orchestra, and records.
What was the attraction of the orchestra to make you survive for 10 years? Did you have to alter your style at all?
Quite a lot. But the thing that established us more than anything else was the Gaucho Tango Orchestra at the beginning, because it was such a novelty in this country. It was very well costumed. It was a beautiful picture on the stage, very colourful. And then in those days I was very dark, black hair instead of white, and had a moustache and side whiskers, and really looked the part.
How about
lovely story about that, you know.
Well, let's hear it.
A true one, you know, when the Prince of Wales, as he was then, returned from Buenos Aires, the British exhibition out there. His equerry came in to see me one night, because he was a keen enthusiast of the Savoy, And he came in, he says, His Royal Highness is coming in with a party tomorrow night, and he says he's gone crazy about 2 tangos. So he says he's bound to come up and ask you to play them, so I'm giving you an opportunity. And he gave me the names of these 2 tangos, and I went out and got a couple of piano copies and jotted down a few notes for the orchestra. And when he came in, lo and behold, he came up. Usually he used to send a waiter up, but this time he came up himself and jabbered away. Fortunately for me, I was able to grasp the 2 titles that he asked for, because we were all ready for it. See, we were all briefed. And we played them, went off, came back again, and this time he came up to me and he was jabbering away in his Spanish, and I couldn't understand one word he was talking about. Quite embarrassing. So I thought, well, the only thing I can do is to stand up and tell him the truth. So I stood up and said to him, Your Royal Highness, I'm English. He said, no, you could have knocked him over with a feather. He was very charming and very interested in knowing the nationalities of the rest of the orchestra, but it was quite a thing about not being able to understand one word he was talking about, not even whether he was speaking good Spanish.
Of course, you then also went across to Brazil and Argentina. Was this to study the
this
music
was
at first
before.
hand?
This was really before, yes.
And was that to study the music at first hand?
Not to study music at all. I had no idea I was going to run an orchestra then when I went. And it was just, I went out there because I was going in for something else, coffee planting really. And I was so enthralled with the music that I decided to come back and have a crack at the thing.
Actually, Brazilian jazz seems to be enjoying a welcome return.
Yes.
How do you view that? I'm thinking of groups like Sergio Mendes.
I don't think, in my humble opinion, I don't think it's as good as the American jazz. The real American. I don't mean South American, but the real American, New Orleans or anywhere where they specialize in that kind of music.
A trend we'll discuss later on in the program, because going again back to the Savoy, you in fact had 5 Royal Command performances.
Yes.
Which you appeared in.
Yes.
What were these like? Were they hectic occasions?
Very worrying, nerve-wracking.
Nerve-wracking?
Oh, they're very nerve-wracking because, well, I don't know. I think any public performance is nerve-wracking. You know, you don't show this to the public, but I mean, inside you feel, well, I'll be glad when this is all over.
Why is that? I would have thought as professionals it was just another engagement.
No, I don't think so. I think it's always the same. I mean, even when I go into a studio, I don't mean now, but a studio broadcasting with my orchestra, I'm always terribly nervous. Terribly nervous. And I think that it's that fact of nerves that gives you an opportunity of giving rather an exciting performance.
It's butterflies in the stomach before the microphone goes live.
That's right. I think so.
We're taking you on up now to the 1940s, and before we go on to the 1940s, I think time to pause for yet another piece of music from Eric.
Yes, and we've chosen for you this time a piece called I'll Be Seeing You. It's by Fane and Carl, and here once again is Geraldo and His Orchestra playing it for you.
I'll be seeing you in all the old familiar places that this heart of mine embraces all day through. In that small cafe, the park across the way, the children's carousel, the chestnut tree, the wishing well, and I'll be seeing you in every lovely summer's day, when everything looks bright and gay. I'll always think of you that way. I'll find you in the morning sun, and when the night is new, I'll be looking at the moon, and I'll be seeing you. I'll find you in the morning sun, and when the night is new, I'll be looking at the moon, and I'll be seeing you.
Let's talk again to Geraldo. 1940, the start of the 1939, rather, the start of the war, the beginnings of the ENSA organisation, visions of concert parties.
I used to...
It's always been a bit of a joke, hasn't it? But it's not.
It isn't a joke. Believe me, it isn't, because I was right in the middle of it. And I think ENSA, and Basil Dean in particular, did a great job. A great job. I can't think of anyone else that could have done a job as well, and certainly not better.
For the benefit of our listeners who don't know what ENSA is, and I must confess that being young, he says, neither do I. What exactly was it, and what was its purpose?
Entertainment National Service Association, and it was run by NAFI. It was financed by NAFI and run by NAFI. So all the cups of tea that the chaps bought, and coffee and chocolate and so on, the profits of that went for their entertainment. And
But the fundamental feeling behind forming such an organisation was that the troops out in the front line or behind the firing lines needed some form of entertainment to take their minds off the horrors of war.
moral support. Well, we went out to the Middle East, the whole band and the singers, in 1943, and I would say, without question of contradiction about this, that was the most exciting part of my whole career.
Why's that?
We never got paid for it. We did it for nothing, and you felt you were doing a worthwhile job. You got such wonderful appreciation.
I'm going to say, what was the reception like?
Terrific, absolutely terrific. And you used to play under some of the most difficult conditions sometimes. Most of the stuff, particularly in the Middle East, was out in the open, in the desert. You see, and our platform used to be some oil drums with wood on the top of them, and for lights we used to have headlights from lorries shining onto the stage, and then 5,000 or 6,000 troops sitting on the sand in the desert.
Must be many fabulous stories about things that went disastrously wrong.
Not really. The most disastrous thing that went wrong was going from Tunis to Bari, and there we nearly all lost our lives. Our plane, one of our engines conked out, and we belly landed in a mud field in between two mountains, and I should think there must have been 2 or 3 yards between each wingtip, and we went in nose first into this mud. Fortunately, it was mud, otherwise we'd have all been killed. That was the worst experience.
Hilarious.
We've been into camps, you know, where the lights failed in the middle of a performance, but that was treated more with humour than anything else. But that was the thing with the aeroplane was a worrying one, because we were right bang in the theatre of war in Italy, or a few miles away, and all that they got at home was Geraldo plane in air disaster. No one knew whether we were alive or dead. But no, it was all very well worthwhile.
Of course, it still continued today, hasn't it? British servicemen in Northern Ireland, for instance.
Oh yes, yes. I would be quite prepared to even do that as well, even with the risk of the IRA. No, I think the chaps need some relaxation and break from their normal routines. I think it's a great... I mean, I went round during our trip to various hospitals where the wounded were lying in bed and talk to them, and they were able to give me messages that they would like me to convey to their families when I got back to England, which I did. And we did a lot of broadcasting for the BBC while we were out there. Live shows and request shows all helped tremendously. And then we did a big show in Cairo with the combined orchestra of the RAF, the military one, and ours. And we did the first performance of the Warsaw Concerto in Cairo, in the Giza University Hall.
1945, the end of war, return to peacetime, and continuation of your peacetime activities.
Well, BBC mainly then. We were doing a lot of broadcasting during the war. As many as 8, 9, 10, 12 sometimes a week broadcast.
Wasn't it killing the goose that laid the golden egg?
Not really, because they were on different wavelengths. A lot went overseas, a lot went into propaganda. We used to broadcast to Germany, you know, when Lord Haw was very hot material. I always remember appearing in the Daily Express one day, a commentary that Haw the night before had put over the German radio when he said, now the air raid warning's gone in London, everyone's rushing for the tube stations and the air raid shelters, and he said the fire bombs are flying down onto the capital, and he said through all this Geraldo and his orchestra go on broadcasting. Which was nice to see, actually. It must have had a rather damning effect on them over
because
there.
in fact it was live, there was no recordings.
No, true. But it was on shortwave, you see. As soon as the air raid warning went, they went from medium wave onto shortwave. So that the people in England couldn't hear it. It was only on shortwave.
I see.
And then we used to go down a lot to do broadcasts in Bush House when they were doing the propaganda program.
This is the home of the overseas service.
Yes, that's right.
Let's keep on with peacetime, leaving the war behind us. You then went into virtually management. Names such as Carol Carr, Dick James, Jackie Hunter, Archie Lewis, Eve Boswell, to name but a few, Derek Roy. Why did you make the switch into management? Was this a progression?
Well, really, it wasn't quite management in those days. It developed into that eventually. They were employed by me and with my orchestra, and they were engaged as artists. I didn't even always represent them. We had first choice, and if they wanted to do something else, they used to have to come and ask for permission. But when it first started, it was just that we had these as entertainers. You know, Eve Boswell was an exception, Derek Roy was an exception, Jackie Hunter was an exception, but the others, most of them were just, well, Archie Lewis was as well, and incidentally he's an enormous hit in the Caribbean, because he was a West Indian.
Yeah. Okay, we'll tie the loose ends up on this interview in just a few short moments, but right now let's have some more music.
In Berkeley Square.
Certain nights, the night we met, there was magic abroad in the air. There were angels dining at the Ritz, and a nightingale sang in Berkeley Square. The streets of town were paved with stars, such a romantic affair. And as
Geraldo, Jerry, it's 1973. You're still in the scene and at a time when I suppose most people at your age would be thinking of retiring and planting flowers in the garden, but no, you're continuing. What are you doing exactly in the field still?
Well, I'm sitting much more behind a desk organising things. I have 3 orchestras out in Bermuda, all emanating from England. I've got 2 in the Dorchester Hotel in London, and 1 in Quaglinos, in London, 2 or 3 pianists playing in restaurants in and around London. And we do these recordings for RCA in America, quite a lot. And then, of course, which is very fortunate for me, I think, I'm on the board of HTV.
This is Harlech Television.
Harlech.
And yet you have no intention whatsoever of giving up.
Oh no, I think I shall give up when I start digging up daisies. Otherwise I shall accelerate that event. No, I've always been active all my life, and I think I would be completely lost. I couldn't retire to play golf every day or anything like that.
But looking back over the whole field of music, in the time you've been in the music scene, there have been great changes. Casting your mind back, do you think they're for the best?
No, I don't. Well, I may be prejudiced, you see, because I don't think they are for the best. I always say there's only 2 kinds of music, and that's good and bad, whatever it is, whether it's pop, whether it's symphony music or light music or anything. But I think that we've had rather too much of this twangy noise of guitars, and the lyrics even kill me more than the music, because you can never understand one word that they're trying to put over on the radio or on records. You know, when they spend hours producing a record, and then at the end you can't understand one word they're trying to say or do.
But can I thank you most sincerely for coming along to the studio, Geraldo? Thank you very much, and I'm sure your music, having been appreciated, will still continue to be appreciated in the, well, years to come.
Well, it's been a great pleasure for me to come along here, and whoever's listening to this program, I assure you that it has been my pleasure to come along, and I hope I've given you some comfort and enjoyment.
Geraldo, thank you very much. Eric, it's back to you.
Well, I'd like to say thank you very much to Mr. Geraldo for coming on to Global Radio here to present your programme in the series The Great Ones, and may we salute you for a very fine record. And for those who didn't know, you've been listening to Dennis Rookar talking to the one and only Geraldo,
on which I've a place.
and we do hope you've enjoyed the programmes, and we hope you'll keep listening to other programmes. Good night.
Every tomorrow will be complete if all our moments are half as sweet as all our time was then. Picnics and hayrides.